Tonight, the 14-year-old boy who died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. A court hears how Daniel Anjorin's killer was having a psychotic episode, determined to kill as many people as possible. Also ahead, exclusive access to London's first mental health A&E. Doctors there tell us the situation is at crisis levels. The Horley homeowner dealing with sewage spills in his back garden given £30 compensation. And
my favourite things I've ever done in London is go to Notting Hill.
And I want to share our exact itinerary. We started off at the iconic, colourful buildings that are so beautiful, like truly prettier in person.
Just a girl standing in front of a house while the real-life residents of Notting Hill are taking action against disruptive tourism. Good evening. 14-year-old Daniel Anjorin was walking to school in Hainault when he was killed by a man he'd never met. Marcus Monzo is on trial for his murder, accused of repeatedly stabbing the schoolboy with a samurai sword and attempting to murder 4 other people last April. At the Old Bailey today, the prosecution called it a brutal string of attacks that they say Monzo carried out while in a drug-induced psychotic state. Daniel's family say they have to process that their son and brother will never come home. Simon Harris has been following the prosecution's case against Monzo and a warning his report contains distressing details of the attacks.
Daniel Anjorin didn't know his killer. He was on his way to school when, according to the prosecution, his life was snuffed out in an instant. He was killed, the Old Bailey was told, by Marcus Monzo, a 37-year-old man from Beckton in East London. Daniel was one of 6 people attacked by a man with a sword with a 2-foot-long blade over a period of 20 minutes at Hainault on the morning of April the 30th last year. The first victim that day was a man on his way to work at a local shop. The jury was shown a doorbell video of a grey van allegedly driven by Monzo ploughing into a man called Donato Iwule as he walked along a pavement. The prosecution barrister, Tom Little KC, said Monzo then attacked Mr Iwule with a sword, adding if he hadn't managed to escape, he too would have been killed. When Mr Iwule shouted at Monzo, "I don't know you," Monzo is said to have replied, "I don't care, I will kill you." The jury heard that he attacked a further 4 people, including a couple who were in bed with a 4-year-old child sleeping in the same room. 2 police officers who tried to arrest him were also wounded. Daniel was the only victim who didn't survive. According to the prosecution, Daniel was wearing headphones when Monzo attacked him from behind. He lifted the sword above his head and delivered what Mr Little called an unsurvivable chopping injury to his face and neck. As Daniel lay on the ground, he was attacked again. Mr Little said there is little doubt that the defendant was intending to kill as many people as he could that day. We say that the defendant's conduct was brought about by self-induced intoxication in the form of drugs. Monzo denies murdering Daniel and attempting to murder 4 other people. The trial continues next week. Simon Harris, ITV News at the Old Bailey.
3 Met police officers are facing a gross misconduct hearing over the strip search of a 15-year-old girl. Child Q, as she's known, was pulled out of an exam at her school in Hackney and searched after a teacher reported that she believed she was in possession of cannabis. Caf O'Pata has spent the day at the hearing, and Caf, take us through today.
Well, today we heard from the Deputy Safeguarding Manager at Child Q School. Crucial bit of testimony because she was the one who called the police about Child Q. She said that she thought that the student was under the influence and smelled strongly of cannabis. Now, we have to remember that this woman isn't the one on trial. However, there were times during her session that things got a bit heated. There was a lot of focus about why she called the police and what she told the police about Child Q. She said she did so based on the advice of the Safer Schools police officer. And during her hearing, she was absolutely adamant that not once did she tell the police that Child Q had drugs on her, nor did she ask the police to carry out a more thorough search. That's what she said. But then sections of her transcripts with the police call were read out, and Yasmin Dose told a very different story. She was quoted saying, "We're pretty sure Child Q, has drugs on her." Right, okay, can we just make it noted that we absolutely think she has it on her? We wondered if she could have a more thorough search. Now, the safeguarding manager was sounding quite agitated whilst these quotes were being read out. She claimed she never said any of these things. She said that the transcripts was made up, manufactured. She said she never expected Child Q to be strip searched, nor did she know that a strip search took place. Yasmin, at the heart of these proceedings is a child, an adult in fact right now, still suffering from what's been described as mental trauma. And while Child Q isn't going to be given evidence during the hearing, this time next week we'll be hearing from the police officers who carried out that search.
OK, Kath, for now then, thank you. 2 men have been charged with murder over a car crash that killed a 4-year-old boy. 2 pickup trucks collided on New Barn Road in Dartford just before 9:30 on Sunday evening. A 1-year-old girl has minor injuries and a 24-year-old man is in a critical condition. Father and son, Patrick Morn and Owen Morn, have been remanded in custody and will appear in court tomorrow. New figures have revealed how little the bus-bike shuttle through the Silvertown Tunnel is being used. TfL says between 100 and 150 bikes are using the service every day, where they have the capacity for 720. The controversial tunnel has been open for a month, but is currently closed at night for works. And
he's now towards Leicester Square.
The Met Police has released footage of how they arrested a phone thief by live tracking the device. A police helicopter pursued and guided motorcycle officers on the ground to intercept and arrest the suspect in central London less than an hour after the robbery. Next tonight, Steve Pelham's home in Horley sits next door to a Thames water treatment plant. In the last 5 years, sewage has flooded into his garden 3 times, causing hundreds of pounds worth of damage and leaving his property worth 30% less than he bought it for. Now, after years of fighting for some form of compensation, Thames Water has sent him a cheque for £30. Rags Martel reports.
So all this was flooded with sewage stuff.
When it floods here, it's not water.
It's raw sewage, but obviously you don't get the bits and bobs. There's no toilet paper or stuff. It's just liquid effluent.
So this is your house?
We're in Horley near Gatwick, and when the heavy rain comes, the nearby sewage works often overspill.
And it came to about here?
This was Stephen Pelham's home last November. The sewage water was half a wheelie bin deep. Despite almost £20,000 worth of damage, what really stinks is the amount of compensation Thames Water have just given him.
We've received a cheque for £30 compensation from Thames Water.
And what's your reaction to that?
It's a joke. They try to rub more salt into our wounds, and it's just a joke.
Stephen lives just 200 metres away from this, the Horley Sewage Treatment Works, which has a potted history of spillages as monitored by the clean water charity, the River Mole Watch.
In the last 5 years, residents have found sewage flooding down this road that we're standing on and into the street where cars splash through it, and it actually floods into people's properties and soaks their driveways. So they're surrounded by a moat of sewage.
This video shows a spillage from last year, but this isn't an isolated case. Many other Thames Water sewage works are classed as failing by the watchdog Ofwat.
If a dog owner leaves dog mess, they get fined. So I think we should be treating Thames Water's mess like dog mess. And there are several houses in the constituency that have been devalued by this, so that's a big bill.
As for the Environment Agency, they told us that they share the public's view that sewage pollution is unacceptable, adding that they've made it clear to Thames Water that major infrastructure work needs to happen here.
But this company is drowning in £20 billion worth of debt, despite paying big bonuses to its bosses and large sums to shareholders.
Oh yeah, it is a big worry. If they're that far in debt, that then they're not going to spend money on the Horley sewage works or any of the others along the River Mile.
Thames Water told us they're aware of the problem at the treatment works and it's now a top priority, adding they're confident they found a short-term solution. Rags Martel, ITV News, Horley.
The singer Jessie J has announced that she's been diagnosed with early breast cancer.
I'm highlighting the word early. Cancer sucks in any form, but I'm holding on to the word early. I have been in and out of tests throughout this whole period. I just wanted to be open and share it. I am going to disappear for a bit after Summertime Ball to have my surgery.
The 37-year-old from Chadwell Heath has just released her new single, No Secrets, her first new music in 4 years. She says she will be taking a break after her performance at the Summertime Ball at Wembley Stadium next Sunday. Now, doctors at London's first mental health A&E have told ITV News the service could help save lives. The NHS has opened a small number of the units across the country, staffed with specialist doctors and nurses to care for those experiencing suicidal thoughts or mania. In a TV first, we've been given exclusive access inside to see exactly how it works. With our special report, here's Helen Keenan.
These bedrooms are specifically designed for patients that have been detained under the Mental Health Act. Now, we're the only unit in London that can actually detain patients to our unit.
And they can stay in here?
Yeah, they can stay in here.
Some here will be experiencing psychotic episodes. These rooms are secure to stop self-harming.
This tilting cupboard, which means you can't hang any kind of ligatures on it. We have these windows which are anti-ligature windows.
This is a much safer environment for someone who's having a mental health crisis compared to if they were in A&E.
Much safer, yeah.
This obviously isn't in place across London, is it?
No, it's not yet, no. It would be great if it was.
Do you think that would help a lot more people?
I think it could save a lot of lives, yeah.
Just steps away from these rooms are the clinical team.
How was the remainder of the shift yesterday evening?
Yesterday was a little bit. We had 3 patients who came in.
Around 20 people a day come to this unit. There are consultation rooms and a seating area to rest. These are people who need urgent care, but in A&E, they face long wait times.
That's the sort of gap that we really need to plug right now. Somebody at 2 in the morning who's really distressed.
And A&E is not kitted out for that?
A&E is not cut out for that, no, not. I mean, for someone who's got physical health issues or someone who's seriously self-harmed, A&E might be the appropriate first point of call. But for someone who's just distressed or suicidal or hearing voices or whatever, A&E is not the place for them to be.
In the last decade, the number of people seeking mental health care in England's gone up by more than 100%. In the last 5 years, 1.26 million people have gone to A&E for mental health reasons. And in that time, the number of people waiting more than 12 hours for a bed has gone up by almost 400%.
Already 10 NHS trusts have launched separate units for people in mental health crisis, like this one here in Ladbroke Grove.
As a consultant, I usually see the more severe cases. So we spoke about patients, who might have ingested acids or corrosives because their auditory hallucinations are telling them to do that in order to end their life.
Would you say that mental health support is in crisis?
Absolutely. There's a crisis in mental health care, nobody can deny it. The most important thing that we do here is that it's a 24-hour walk-in service. A person who is in the mental health crisis can walk in, can get expert input very quickly.
Doctors here tell us this service is part of a solution to a healthcare system under pressure, with demand only growing. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Still to come on the programme, why this Notting Hill street is looking a little less colourful, and
I said to my friend, I row with my kids, and she said, what do you mean you row with them? You mean you tell them off? I said, no, because that would suggest status, wouldn't it?
Celebrating midlife, menopause and motherhood, Kerry Godliman is here. But first, almost 8,000 plastic bottles, 5,000 cans and more than 10,000 plastic food wrappers. That's how much rubbish was collected from the River Thames in just 2 weeks last year. Hoping to go at least one better this time, the Big Paddle clean-up is back and they've enlisted some pretty impressive volunteers to help. Carolyn Sim reports.
World-class canoeists don't usually move this slowly on the water, But today they're in a different race against rubbish.
We have found a couple of bits, our biggest item being a deck chair.
World champion Bethan Forrow has joined volunteers on the River Lee for the Big Paddle Clean-up, a campaign to get rid of rubbish from rivers.
That has obviously been dumped in the river.
What do you think about that?
I think it's disgusting. I think, especially when there's so many ways to appropriately get rid of stuff you don't want.
This stretch of the river is close to the Lee Valley White Water Centre, where many Team GB canoeists train, like Olympic silver medalist Mallory Franklin.
I grew up on the river when I started paddling when I was 5, and I was fortunate enough to be able to play and be able to go swimming and do everything without getting ill and without there being too much rubbish around. So I think being able to give that back to the future generation is really important to me personally.
The campaign, which is now in its 4th year, is also about raising awareness of river pollution. Water companies support it. Thames Water today said their 5-year plan to invest in infrastructure will prevent sewage from ending up in the water.
Last year, volunteers collected over 1,800 of these sacks and filled them with more than 7,000 plastic bottles, more than 4,000 cans and more than 10,000 plastic food wrappers.
I get a sense of achievement out of it, and it's even nicer when you see people and they thank you as well, you know, to make sure this place looks clean and is just protected.
Have you found much?
We've got a trolley, we've got a bicycle.
A bicycle?
Yeah.
All kinds of junk was dragged from the water today and from along the riverbank. Volunteers will be picking litter from London's waterways for just 2 weeks, but the campaign hopes to encourage more people to help keep our rivers clean all year round. Carolyn Sim, ITV News.
Now, I don't know how my guest tonight finds the time to do everything that she does. A brilliant actor, comedian, writer, podcaster, broadcaster. Kerry Godliman is now kicking off her latest stand-up tour at the Clapham Grand. Bandwidth is, in her words, all about HRT, knicker admin. I'll ask her about that in a minute, what that means, and parenting teenagers. Let's have a look at her in action.
So I have to let him win because I'm his mum and I love him in a sort of oppressive, cloying way. So I have to let him win. He'll lose at things later in life when I can't control that for him. But for this game of Snap, I can let him win, can't I? But it turns out that my reflexes aren't as sentimental as me. So a diplodocus goes down and then another diplodocus. And before I quite know what's happening, I'm like, snap, snap.
So, Kerry, that was a previous tour, wasn't it?
That's an old Live at the Apollo, yes.
Yeah, so your kids are teenagers now, grown up a bit, still playing Snap with them?
No more Snap.
No more Snap.
They don't even really want much to do with me these days. We're on to that chapter of parenting now, teenagers.
OK, and what's this about knicker admin? Dare I ask, do I want to know?
Well, I've got a teenage daughter and we've got different size knickers, but my husband gets the wrong knickers in the wrong drawer. Look, if people come and see the show, I will explain it in more detail, but that's the gist. There's knicker issues.
OK. Brilliant tease.
Yeah.
There's knickers.
Well, there's always quite fun to say knickers, isn't it?
Yeah, I like
find.
saying knickers. Yeah. OK, I've heard that you didn't used to like to talk about so-called women's issues.
Yeah.
In here, HRT, menopause,
well,
things have changed, haven't they?
I've just realised, well, the world's changed a bit, and also I haven't got anything else. This is my life.
Yeah.
I am a woman living in the world, so I tend to talk about what I experience, and a lot of what's been coming up is perimenopause and parenting and, you know, domestic. It's quite domestic, and that's just the world I live in. So maybe the next show will be about my adventures in Nordic walking, but this one is about knicker admin and HRT.
Fine. What do men make of this? Do lots of men come along to watch?
I've never asked them. They seem to have a good time. I don't know if they're coming of their own free will or they're being dragged along by their partners. But I've had no negative feedback. So I assume they're having a good time.
That'll do, won't it? Things are changing then. You do loads of panel shows. You were often in my ears last thing at night when I listened to you on the radio.
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
No, it's lovely.
Quite a grating voice to go to sleep.
No, it's lovely. It works. But things are changing. It used to be that in these panel shows there would be no women or maybe one woman.
Yeah, but you're going back now. There's been women on those shows for quite a while.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Getting
I mean,
better?
initially there were none, then there was one. Now sometimes you have more than one.
Ooh.
It's all very exciting.
You're so busy. As I said, I don't know how you fit it all in. Loads of people who have seen you in the brilliant drama Afterlife. I mean, it was just stunning, wasn't it? And you've just wrapped on a sequel to Spinal Tap, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, we shot that last year, so that should be out. That should be out later this year, I'm hoping. Yeah, that was quite a.
And good
exciting.
memories of Afterlife? What was that like to
very
shoot?
fond memories of Afterlife. That was a real. There's lots of those. I had a lot of pranking done to me. That was the.
Did you?
Yeah, lots of pranking. Those little clips there of him pouring water.
You didn't know that was going to happen?
Well, not really. No, we kind of. He wanted a nice library of pranks so that he could just use them throughout the show because that was part of their relationship. They sort of pranked each other. So yeah, some of which we couldn't use because, I mean, there was one with the lemonade and he shook it up and then I opened it and it literally went up my nose and was out my eyes.
Well,
So,
literally out your eyes?
Yes, it was coming everywhere. So he was like, oh, I can't use that. I can't use that one.
Oh, no, I'd like to have seen that.
Yeah, it was a good one.
You call this stand-up, just finally, the longest-running sitcom in your head. I want to ask you what's next. Could that be a sitcom? We've only got 20 seconds.
I don't know. You tell them to make it into a sitcom and I'll be there.
I'll tell them. I have absolutely no influence over anything.
I don't know, but that would be lovely. But that's how I think of it, is the next chapter in my sitcom, in my head.
Wonderful. Listen, it's lovely to speak to you. Good luck. It's tomorrow,
Thank
isn't
you.
it? Clapham.
Yep, Clapham's tomorrow. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thanks, Kerry. Now, it was described in the movie as a small village in the middle of the city. Over the last 30 years, Notting Hill has become a tourist attraction for millions. And social media, of course, has given people a whole new motive to visit. But some residents are taking objection to so-called influencers, who they say are using their colourful homes as backdrops for photos and videos. So much so, they're going to extreme measures to put them off. Faye Barker explains.
Some people in Notting Hill are starting to feel a little like Hugh Grant's character in the famous film of the same name. The problem, though, isn't paparazzi, it's tourists and influencers flocking to colourful corners for the perfect picture. To deter them, some houses on Lancaster Road have now been painted grey and black, with neighbours being encouraged to do the same after problems with noise, litter and a lack of privacy.
They haven't got a clue. They're just here to get a picture in front of a house that matches their outfit and tick a box.
It's very noisy and very untidy as a result. You know, the street is covered with litter.
This house is painted this colour because of the number of times that I stepped out of my front door to find somebody like getting changed in my porch.
Our house is already a different colour. It's light colour, so it's not a colourful house. And I think the other people in the street should do the same.
Catchy videos of Notting Hill flood social media. And interest has only grown thanks to famous films from Bedknobs and Broomsticks
in Portobello Road.
Mrs. Brown to Paddington, all filmed in the well-visited West London spot. However, for some tourists, the chains, ropes and signs are enough to back off.
I think we were kind of mostly taking photos from afar. We wouldn't want to kind of actually step onto people's property, like you said.
I think if you look around, you can see a lot of them have the gates across their steps, and I could honestly imagine people going over that just to take more photos.
So there's now a bit of a grey shadow looming over the road once nicknamed Quality Street. But for a bit more privacy, for some it's a price worth paying. Faye Barker, ITV News.
That Notting Hill film feels like a very long time ago, doesn't it? Right, it's been a bit brighter out there today. Let's see what's ahead. I'm sorry to say, I think it could be rain. Here's Chris Page with the forecast.
Come rain or shine, Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello there. Very good evening to you. After one of the driest and warmest, sunniest springs on record, it's not really continuing as the first week of summer goes. Yesterday there's been some sunshine around, but there's also been one or two showers at times too, and that's because low pressure is anchored to the north of the country. It's going to drive in some further outbreaks of rain quite significant rain first thing tomorrow morning and into the afternoon, and then even into the weekend, more showers, and some of these will be heavy and thundery at times too. But for this evening, we say goodbye to most of the showers, dry for a time before the cloud gradually thickens from the south and the west. That will herald the arrival of some outbreaks of rain. It starts light and patchy with temperatures into low double figures, but as we go through the morning, the rain starts to increase from the south and west, turning more persistent, steady and heavy in some places, and some gusty winds in association with that too. Some brighter skies to end the day. The showers not too heavy at times, I should say, and otherwise temperatures up to 17 to 19 degrees. As we go towards Friday, still 1 or 2 showers around, but the heaviest and possibly thundery showers are likely to occur on Saturday. The pollen is next.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Making the most of summer. Piri sponsors ITV pollen count.
And with a changeable story as we go through the rest of the week and into the weekend, our pollen levels are fluctuating between low and high. We're currently in the grass pollen season, which affects the majority of hay fever sufferers. Take care.
Finally tonight, ITV is celebrating 70 years of broadcasting, so we're delving into our archives and offering you a glimpse of past news stories that made the headlines here in London. 20 years ago, Nelson Mandela stood in Trafalgar Square calling on the world to make poverty history. In his historic speech, he said overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice. Our senior correspondent Ronke Phillips has taken a look back at that iconic speech and the way we covered it.
The day 20 years ago, this famous landmark was turned from Trafalgar into Nelson Mandela Square. 22,000 people crammed into every available space and also watching from nearby windows. All drawn to the capital because of one man and this speech.
As long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality persist in our world, none of us can truly rest.
He was on those steps there, and if we look, that was just right there in front of the National Gallery, 4 steps down, speaking to 20,000 people.
The speech made the front page of every national newspaper. And the man who, with his team, had persuaded the South African icon to be there wasn't even sure until the last minute that he'd pulled it off.
We didn't know for sure whether people would come, and an hour before it was an empty square and we thought, we've got the world's greatest living hero coming, will anybody turn up? But London has just turned up right on time.
I think one more round of applause for the great Nelson Mandela. Fantastic.
The voice of June Sarpong, who on that day 20 years ago was the person in charge of warming up the crowd and then inviting the great man to the microphone.
It was so magical and everybody was getting sort of G'd up and I had to sort of G up the crowd. Are you ready for Mr. Mandela? Are you ready? Let's shout for him. And he was a star, so he knew how to do things. So he delayed his arrival a little bit and then Sir Bob brought him out and it was just amazing.
For these children from Brixton, being there was extra special because earlier they'd compiled a scrapbook of pictures and letters for Mandela to thank him for allowing their new school to bear his name.
I think it was a very good speech. It must have took him a long time to think it out.
Anyone who was there has never forgotten this speech or the man who had the power to bring politicians and the public together for a common cause.
That was his sort of message to the world, that we can be hopeful, that we can be optimistic, but yes, we've got to be determined and we've got to get up in the morning and take action.
Ronke Phillips, ITV News.
Fabulous archive. That's it from us. The evening news is next with Mary. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.